there are some things that the Reds didn't do, and I'm okay with that.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. Welcome in to the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We've been podcasting about the Cincinnati Reds team for a long time, like over 12 combined years, if you put our two experienced resumes together. And we're glad that you're alongside us here today because Locked On Reds is for the Reds fan that knows what happened. They want to know why. And by the way, Merry Christmas to you and happy holidays. Thank you for joining us on today's show. We'll get talking about, there's some Reds related Christmas memories that we got that we're going to get into a little bit later on in today's show. There's also a rumor about Teoscar Hernandez that I think should bode well for the Reds, but right now it doesn't. I'll explain why. But we want to start first with the moves that have been happening in Major League Baseball that are not Reds related, and we're glad that the Reds didn't do them. That's all coming up on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we will get started today, Steve, is with the fact that there's been a flurry of moves. Baseball's actually been kind of busy. The league has been kind of busy over the last couple of days leading into this Christmas day. I'm glad that the Reds haven't made these moves, though.
There's a lot of the moves that were made that before they were made, the Reds were in on it. The Reds have checked in on it. The Reds have talked to somebody about it. And I'm glad when it all shook out that the Reds weren't really involved in it because I think that ultimately it's going to benefit the Reds long run. The one I'm going to start with is Garrett Crochet to the Red Sox. There was a hype train that was building surrounding Garrett Crochet coming to the Reds. The national.
I was convincing myself.
You were, and the national insiders were talking about this every day, and I was never in on this. I never wanted to do this. I got poo-pooed for not wanting to do this, but at the end of the day, I like how the Reds rotation looks right now. I think they did a good job of dealing with some of the depth issues. I think they did a good job of going out and finding an innings eater that can slot right into this rotation, and they did it without breaking the prospect capital bank. Yeah, it took sending Jonathan India away, but that guy was a man without a home anyway. So they did the thing that they always said they were going to do as teams got close to running out of, as players ran out of team control. We were going to start looking to trade him. That's what we were told by Nick Krall. And that's exactly what happened. Jonathan India, was very good. He was a fan favorite and his time was running out and it was time to get something for him. And they did. And I liked it. And I'm glad it wasn't a trade for Crochet.
And I think too, that the prospect deal that the Red Sox had to give up to the White Sox for Garrett Crochet, there's a lot of folks that are saying, well, boy, it seems like the Reds could have made that deal. But the scouting on that is so different. The way that scouts view Reds prospects are not the same as how they view Red Sox prospects. Whether they're right or wrong, that's just how reality is. Just because a Reds prospect is ranked yay high doesn't mean that a Red Sox prospect ranked yay high is that much worse or better. Then it's very weird in that way. So comparing trades, apples to apples, just isn't fair and isn't realistic. And with that being said, another thing that the Reds didn't do is they didn't trade for Josh Naylor. There were rumors linking the Reds with the Guardians about talking about Josh Naylor and outfielder Lane Thomas. This happened a couple of weeks ago. And quite frankly, whenever this trade rumor came out, I was a little bit in on it, but the reservations I had with it is that they were looking for their biggest offseason need in not one, but two players. And that doesn't work. When you get two players to do one job, you really don't have any solution whatsoever. Because Josh Naylor's a DH, and he would be your middle of the order guy. And then Lane Thomas would be your outfielder. but Lane Thomas doesn't hit very well. Josh Naylor doesn't field very well. So then you have to make other roster moves to suffice that. That never really made a lot of sense to me. Josh Naylor gets traded to the Diamondbacks and basically what amounted to a salary dump. I think all they got out of that was a compensatory draft pick. So some people were just like, well, why didn't the Reds trade a compensatory draft pick for Josh Naylor? Because the roster fit wasn't there. And both these trades, I think the roster fit just wasn't there, and I'm okay with that.
And I think the people clamoring for that were in the camp of, for the God's sakes, do something. I don't care what it is, just do something.
And that is dangerous.
And that is very, very dangerous. And I'm with you. I'm glad the Reds ended up not making that move. You know, another move I'm glad they didn't make? For a minute there was a clamoring to go get Jock Peterson. And I know everybody has fond memories of the 2015 All-Star game and Jock Peterson blasting a few home runs, but Jock Peterson is not that young guy anymore. The Reds need to go out and get a right-handed, power-hitting outfielder that you can stick in one of the quarters and have him play out there every day. Jock Peterson is a left-handed outfielder that played in, and I say outfielder, he played in 132 games last season, Jeff, and not one of them was in the outfield. And not one of them was in the infield. He played all 132 games as the Arizona Diamondbacks designated hitter last year. This was not the solution to the problem that the Reds had. And had they gone out and got Jock Peterson, and listen, I mean, 23 home runs is nice. I was hoping for a little bit bigger of a bopper than that. But while that would have been okay, maybe he hits 30, 35 home runs at Great American Ballpark, it completely eliminates all the flexibility that the Reds have to move some guys around and get him in the lineup because he could only play DH. You could not stick him in the outfield. You talk about not liking Spencer Steer's defense in the outfield. Let me tell you a little story about Josh.
He's Gold Glove.
You did not want any part of that in the outfield. So yeah. I'm glad the Reds didn't make that move either.
Yeah, compared to Jock Peterson, Spencer Steer's a Gold Glover. And that's the thing, too. Like, we have heard Terry Francona say to no end that he wants the defense to be better. So you're not signing Jock Peterson if that is your mantra. And I think that the lineup improving is actually kind of secondary to Terry Francona with this, especially with some of the signings that we've seen, the additions that the Reds have made, and keeping Nick Martinez. They are putting an emphasis to their pitchers on quick outs. Pitch, don't necessarily pitch to contact. That's a oversimplification of that strategy. But the idea is keep the at-bats short. If the guy can get himself out by hitting a weak grounder or hitting a weak fly ball, then that's a good thing. But you got to have somebody to make the play on the other end. Jock Peterson wasn't going to make that play. So whatever he does with his bat doesn't help the fielding side of things. So I'm okay with that move. I'm okay with Max Kepler going to the Phillies. I had predicted that the Reds would either sign Jock Peterson or Max Kepler, and mostly that's because they fit the opposite of what we said the Reds need. You said it. I've said it. We've both said it multiple times this offseason. Right-handed, power-hitting outfielder. Neither of those things were Max Kepler, and neither of those things were, Jock Peterson's a power hitter, but he's not an outfielder or a right-hander. So those things did not suffice. And then you look at this other move, Christian Walker suffices the right-handed power hitter, but he's a first baseman, and you could kind of see that working out in some ways. But he goes to the Astros, and he goes there on a pretty big deal that probably would have precluded the Reds from making other moves later on this season. And I think that while Nick Krall has the flexibility now, he wants to maintain some flexibility as the trade deadline approaches to make a move that they may need in July as well. They're not just making moves for opening day. They got to think about moves all season long.
Yeah, in Max Kepler, you're looking at another left-handed guy that may or may not be in the decline phase. It's going to be his age 32 season. He had a down year last year. Not quite sure what you were getting there. Didn't hurt my feelings. And again, left-handed, not a power hitter, not the guy we were looking for. Christian Walker was interesting because had the Reds made this move, had they gone out and signed him, I'd have been like, okay.
It's a podium move.
Yeah. It's okay. We have a little press conference and he slots in the lineup and it doesn't fix these other problems. I hope you've got a plan for that, but this is cool. I could have squinted and been okay with that. but they still would have had to
But you
fix the other
squinted.
problems. But you got to squint because it didn't fix the things that really need the fixing, which is power hitting outfielder that's a true outfielder that can play defense and that is not learning on the fly. That's the guy you need. I'd much rather get a nice outfield combination where you can move Spencer Steer to first base, where he plays well defensively and is probably the best first baseman on the team at the moment. CES's health notwithstanding. So I could see that. But looking at all these moves, I think, again, were products of got to have something to talk about in the offseason, especially from the national perspective. These guys are daily. They have to report that they heard something. They have to report that there is something happening somewhere. So a lot of times it's easy to just be like, yeah, the Reds are in on this guy, I think, and people run with it. And I know from the local fan base, I was posting a lot on Twitter X with the guy with the stick poking the Reds logo going, come on, do something. And I think that's where a lot of this came from, Jeff. Come on, please do something.
And I think that is a dangerous thought process. I want to really dive into that on tomorrow's live show. By the way, going live tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to discuss that because doing something just for the sake of doing something, you end up with Jeimer Candelario. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But I think it's suffice it to say the Reds haven't missed out on anything just yet. They do.
And you know who else? You know who else they haven't missed out on? They haven't missed out on Teoscar Hernandez. And it turns out the Dodgers might be looking to move away from Teoscar. We're talking Teoscar Hernandez coming up next. Did Rocket Money help you find subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to people that I know. They didn't realize they were still paying for something, or they didn't realize that they had 2 subscriptions. Rocket Money made it so easy for them to track it all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. One of the best features is the subscription tracker. You can use it to cancel services that you don't want to use anymore. You can use it to save a ton of money. Plus, with their goals feature, you are able to automatically set aside money for your future. No more stressing about budgeting every single month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. Maybe we can get Bob to sign up for Rocket Money, and that will save him enough money to sign an outfielder. All right, we're talking Reds baseball here today and every day, every week, every month, all year long. We're talking Reds baseball, off-season, spring training, regular season, and Lord willing, next postseason. We've got you covered. Make sure you're subscribed. All right, Jeff, Teoscar Hernandez, the guy that we've kind of been harping on for a while. I know I have. I mean, you kind of dialed in on Brent Rooker last year during the trade time, but I have been Teoscar Hernandez for 2 off seasons now. I would love to see him come play at Great American Ballpark. Everybody just assumed he was going to go back to the Dodgers, but there's movement afoot that makes it appear that maybe, just maybe, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to note that most rumors surrounding Hernandez have just been like, yeah, whatever, he's going back to the Dodgers, who cares? But we continue to hear things that it's not as cut and dry as it may seem. His availability may be a little bit more open than we thought. The only issue is there is no involvement of the Reds in any of these rumors. And I think that the reasoning behind that just kind of fuels my speculation a little bit about the future of baseball as a whole. We'll get into that in just a moment, though. But the key update with the Teoscar Hernandez rumor is a couple of different, it's multifaceted. The first one is that there are 3 key teams in a bidding war for him, and they are all bidding on a 3-year contract. It is around $22 to $24 million per year. So putting that almost at $70 million in the 3 years, and it's the Dodgers, the Red Sox, and the Blue Jays. So you're talking about huge markets, the biggest of the big, when it comes to going for Teoscar. These are teams that missed out on Juan Soto. The thing about this on the Dodgers side, though, is they are reportedly seeking trade alternatives. And a lot of this stems from other rumors like Teoscar wants nothing to do with deferrals, and they are, after all, the LA deferred Dodgers. And he wants a straightforward guaranteed contract, and that's maybe not what the Dodgers are offering. So the Dodgers are talking to the Cubs about trading for Seiya Suzuki, and they're talking to the White Sox about trading for Luis Robert. So, I mean, they're in the Luis Robert sweepstakes as well. All of that is to say, it kind of feels like the door remains open for the Reds to go get him. It's just they would be involved with some teams that are creating this inequality within baseball that is opening up the door for what we wonder about a CBA battle in the future.
Yeah, the CBA battle is coming, Jeff. I don't know if you saw this or not, but it definitely caught my attention when the Los Angeles deferments ended up paying a record $103 million in luxury tax this year. 103, like that's more than the Reds payroll right now in a luxury.
And they're
tax.
just handing that to the smaller markets on the revenue
handing
share.
that right on over. As a matter of fact, Major League Baseball across the board, Jeff, a record $311 million is owed by January 21st to Major League Baseball from its clubs in luxury tax. Again, the highest offender of this is the Los Angeles Dodgers at $103 million, coming up not very far behind them, nearly at the $100 million mark. The Mets, $97.1 million in luxury tax that they're paying.
It only went up.
Yeah, and the list goes on. The Yankees at $62.5 million, the Phillies at $14.4 million, the Braves at $14 million, the Rangers at $10.8 million, the Astros at $6.5 million, the Giants at $2.4 million, and those Chicago Cubs of Mason. Sorry, wait, no, the Mason Cubs. How are we doing that? The Cubs owe $570,000 to make your $311 million. This tells me that Major League Baseball is in trouble. These teams are going to continue to be the haves and the have-nots. There's teams like the Miami Marlins that are going to receive a record amount of money in league financing between offsets of luxury tax money and offsets of revenue from the broadcast deals. The Miami Marlins are slated to get nearly $80 million from Major League Baseball this year alone, meaning that Major League Baseball is basically subsidizing that franchise in totality of its operations for the most part. So baseball is in trouble, folks. So I keep telling you that you need to enjoy the 2025 season and the 2026 season, because I will be shocked if we see one single pitch thrown in 2027.
I think that and that's kind of the thing with this, is that it's the economics of baseball are in trouble because they are going to have this weird dichotomy. I think that the owners have been trying to build a case and setting up, brick by brick in a very slow fashion over the last couple of decades, setting up a fight for a salary cap. But you're going to have differing opinions on that based on small market and these big market teams that are paying luxury tax, without abandon. They're not even worried about it. I mean, the Dodgers and the Mets covering almost $200 million by themselves in luxury tax money is just ridiculous. It's crazy to me. But they are in a sport right now that says it doesn't matter how much you pay, as long as you're okay paying more money on top of that because you paid money. And you know what? They paid money already, so why not pay more? That's kind of their thing. I mean, that's Steve Cohen's feeling right now. That's why he didn't care that they had to shell out the record deal to get Juan Soto. He's like, yeah, whatever. We're building a winner. And if that's what it takes to build a winner, we're going to build a winner. And meanwhile, you've got small market teams that the way they operate their ball clubs is that they cannot compete with teams like that. They cannot pay a luxury tax. They can't even get close to that, let alone can they compete with a Juan Soto type contract. And so they're going to find their own way to do that. they're really happy about the idea of fighting for a salary cap. But then they might also be kind of ticked off a little bit whenever the players come back and say they want a salary floor, because that's what all the reporting has been. That anybody who wants a salary cap, get ready for a salary floor as well. We as fans, whatever, man, like give us some good baseball, kind of happy about the idea of both of these things, but to get them is going to be a fight. And just the fact that you're talking about 3 teams fighting over a guy that's only looking for 3 years, looking for like $22 to $24 million, but that would preclude the Reds from getting him because budgetarily they can't fit that in the budget. That's just, to me, that's just so weird that you have this huge gap between these teams that can and these teams that can't. And I wish there were some way to create and really accentuate parity like you see in the NFL. And even to some case, the NBA is not the same, but some cases like the NBA. I feel like there's more parity in those leagues, and those leagues are more popular than Major League Baseball is. So can you create that gap? It's going to require the fight that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I thought there would come a time, and I kept wondering who it was going to be, that there was going to be a deal, the deal that broke baseball, right? And I've been talking to you about this for several years now, as we've just kind of watched how this was going to play out. I keep thinking it was going to be a deal that broke baseball. Turns out it was two deals it took to finally break baseball that I really think the entire economics of the sport get overhauled. The first deal was the Shohei Ohtani deferment deal, both in the volume of money involved in it and the fact that the Dodgers kicked that a decade down the road, basically limiting financial options in perpetuity.
Right.
Then you take the following year, the Juan Soto deal. The Juan Soto deal makes a single player in this sport have a higher net worth than the bottom third of the ownership in this sport. That is something that's not going to sit well with them. Eventually, this team, the haves, the big monies are going to grow so far ahead that even with the hush money, and that's really what the luxury tax is, the hush money that gets kicked down to the bottom third of this sport is not going to be enough any longer to keep them hushed. I think they're going to take this opportunity to overhaul the sport. It's going to be painful, but maybe, just maybe, we'll come out of the other side of it with a better sport and a lot more competitive balance like the NBA has, like the NFL has. And that's what Major League Baseball lacks.
And really, even to follow up on the luxury, on the revenue sharing that they send down to the small markets from this luxury tax thing, at some point, and I don't know exactly what the time frame is, but like not Oakland, almost said Oakland, put money in the jar. The A's have to do this off season where they spend a certain amount of the revenue sharing that they have received. They received a lot of revenue sharing because they are moving cities, but the players union is going to file a grievance against them if they don't spend a certain percentage. And I think that amounts to another $18 million that they still need to spend before they are, out of the grievance territory, as it were. This happens to every small market team. They are monitoring every small market team that receives revenue sharing. The percentages are slightly different based on market size, but there is a certain percentage of the revenue sharing that they must spend. So while, yes, it is hush money, there is also a caveat attached to it that small market teams must obey. So I think at the end of the day, they're going to seek a more concrete limitation on these teams that are just throwing monopoly money at players, and they're going to want to create an economic system in which they are not so easily squashed, as it were, right now. Because right now, I want the Reds ownership group to be able to compete with the Steve Cohens of the world, but they can't. As much as you were sitting there and you're saying, it sounds like you're stumping for ownership right now. We're not. We're being logical. There is no logical way that Reds ownership can compete with Steve Cohen financially. And that's just the hard truth of it. And until baseball figures out a way to negate that, then we are going to have what we have. Ellie's going to go somewhere for $1 billion, and the Reds are not going to be anywhere near the ballpark of being able to compete with that offer. And that's just how things are going to be. So there's a battle coming. there might be multiple battles within that one battle. It's going to be very interesting to keep up with, but it's probably going to amount to no baseball, coming up here in a few years. So we're just saying that to get you ready for it. We don't want it to happen, but we want this sport we want more parity in the sport. Like, it feels like you can pencil in a handful of playoff teams every single year, and I don't want that. I don't want that. But you know what, Steve? You know what? Let's talk about something happy. let's turn this conversation around, because it's Christmas time. Let's talk about some happy things, and we'll do that next. The NFL playoffs are right around the corner, and quite frankly, we are under 100 days to opening day. There's so much to get in on over on FanDuel. Plus, they've got a great promotion right now. If you start off with a $5 winning bet, you can get $250 in bonus bets. That's at FanDuel.com right now. They've got everything that you need all in one place. If you're watching the game live, they've got stats, they've got all the matchup info, they've got some great live odds, all on the same place where you place your bets. Plus, they've got some off-season futures on Major League Baseball right now. They even have the win totals already. It's a little early, I kind of feel like, in the off-season for win total over-unders. And they have the Reds at 78.5. Do I even need to tell you? In case I do, take the over on FanDuel, 78.5 on the Reds. Man, come on. They're going to fall out of bed with more wins than that this year. That's FanDuel.com. Check them out today. Your first $5 bet that wins gets you $250 in bonus bets. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. If you can't watch us, you can listen to us on your favorite audio podcasting app. And if you're listening to us on your favorite audio podcasting app, Steve just had a wardrobe change. So that's why I'm a little thrown off here, but I'm guessing it has something to do with the segment that we're about to talk about, because let's talk about some Christmas memories and how the Reds fit into all that, because I have a memory that's similar to the starter jacket that you're wearing right now. I have a jacket memory. I think it's just because, it's Cincinnati, it's cold. You want something to keep you warm. So I got a nice Reds coat, but I'm going to let you talk about your starter jacket first.
Yeah. So this one, I got this just a few years ago, actually. There's a great company out of Columbus. Homage does a lot of throwback stuff. Oh, yeah. And this jacket became popular a couple years ago. And this was a Christmas present that I got because I wanted one of these so bad when I was a kid. And they cost a lot of money, and I never got one. But this is a replica of the starter jacket that not only everybody had, that was just the thing you had to have, but this is what the players and the managers, if you look at anything from, late 80s to early 90s, they were putting this on. Pitchers were wearing this while they were running the bases. Yes, pitchers were running the bases. Norm Charlton had this jacket on when he absolutely leveled Mike Scioscia at home plate at Riverfront Stadium in one of the highlights of the 1990 season. It was because pitchers wore jackets when they were on base, no matter what month it was, to keep that arm loose. So one of my favorite Reds Christmas gifts, my replica satin starter jacket.
Norm's jacket looks good on you. I got this is a while ago, actually. It was around Christmas time, and we were downtown walking through Cook Sporting Goods. We're doing a lot of like free ads in this segment. But walking through Cook Sporting Goods with my dad, and they had that jacket, like coaches and players wear when they weren't playing in games. The like kind of like a soft shell look, but it was heavier. It was, fleece lined on the inside, but really clean looking jacket with the Reds logo on the left side of the zipper and things like that. It was a great looking jacket. I wear it sometimes. You might see me if it's a cold weather game or something like that. I'll be wearing it, but I always feel like I'm like wearing, and people are going to be like, "Oh, see you like a Reds player or something?" It looks pretty cool.
No one looks at you and thinks that.
But I got a Cook spray, and I've made sure to keep that thing nice and clean and kept up well, so I can wear that year in and year out. But I love this time to get together with family, but also like just thinking about the season moving forward. The Reds are undefeated right now, and every team's undefeated right now. But around Christmas time is the perfect time to look back. And our buddy Chad, he got that book, The Big 50, and reading that and looking at the history of the Reds and getting excited about the season coming forward,
Yeah, this is the time of year. I hope that you're listening to us on Christmas Day here, and whether this is a holiday you celebrate or not, I just want to take this opportunity as we wrap up here today. The end of the year is coming. Various holidays are all around us, and I hope that you have an opportunity to take some time and unplug from work and just relax and be with the people that you care about and enjoy the time as we get ready to head into 2025. A new year's upon us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you get some cool gear, I got my dad a Pete Rose shirt from the team shop and an Ellie De La Cruz shirt. Looking forward, looking back. That's what we love to do with baseball, right? Like, you look forward because the present maybe isn't that great. You're not a playoff team, and you look back because you remember the World Series of old. Hopefully we're looking forward and we're looking in the present at a playoff team here in 2025. We're going to be with you every step of the way, getting you ready for that, because we are talking about the Cincinnati Reds every single day here on Locked On Reds. Make sure you check out tomorrow's live episode, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, December 26th, Thursday. Just making sure we are on the same page, date and time-wise. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That we'll be talking about, this whole thing about, are the Reds missing out and the Reds need to do something, but just because they need to do something doesn't mean they need to do any old thing. We'll explain why on that live show. But for now, make sure you check out Sully over at Locked On MLB. I know he does an on location. He always has a special on location episode. I cannot remember which stadium he did it at this year. I want to say it was Philly. But he always does a on-location episode for Christmas Day. Got a link to Locked On MLB in the description of today's podcast. Make sure you check out Sully's work over there. But until tomorrow, for Steve and myself, we are going to keep you locked on Reds every single day.
Mele Kalikimaka is the thing to say on this bright Hawaiian Christmas day.
I never realized he said Hawaii's way to say Merry Christmas. I always thought he said it's a wise way to say
Both
Merry
things.
Christmas.
Both things can be true.